All right, hello everyone. We are back. I know you've missed us, and we're here to keep you informed on what's going on with Dakota Access Pipeline. So we've decided to do a weekly roundup of all the news surrounding No DAPL, and we are planning on releasing a live update every Friday afternoon, and Chase Ironeyes, our attorney, will be doing live updates twice a week when he has the time to do so. So let's hop right into it. My name's Artie, and this is...
I'm Kelsey.
And we are with the Lakota People's Law Project. So let's jump into it. We just heard today that the North Dakota legislature is introducing bills against the protesters. So one of the bills they're introducing requires them to have, requires the protesters to have face coverings at the protests. So we talked with our attorney, and this is completely unconstitutional. They're discriminating against people on the grounds that they are engaged in First Amendment protected conduct, and these protesters have the right to wear these face masks. And plus, I mean, they're being faced against these water cannons and pepper sprays, so they have to protect themselves. If you're a protester there wanting to protect the water, you should be worried against these, against the police brutality that's been going on. So the other bills include trying to sue the government as a means of recouping millions in policing costs, which have surpassed $22 million now for Morton County. And the last bill they're trying to introduce would exempt a driver who hits a protester on a public road or highway from liability. Now, this is also extremely unconstitutional and very dangerous, too. I mean, think about it. You're pretty much telling people that it's okay to harm these protesters because they're engaged in First Amendment activities, just trying to voice their concern about this pipeline that's damaging potentially to millions of people. So that's what the North Dakota legislature is trying to do right now, and we're going to keep you updated on what goes on with that. This was just announced today. So another thing that was announced recently is that landowners in Morton County filed a lawsuit against Energy Transfer Partners Wednesday, saying that the company deceived them during the negotiations for the easement. So these landowners own about 9 miles along the pipeline's route, and they're saying that Dakota Access contractors harassed, misled, and even threatened them to make sure that the pipeline could go through. So we'll also keep you updated on what's going on with that. Very scary stuff.
Okay, in other news, on November 28th, the Water Protector Legal Collective, which is a subsidiary of the National Lawyers Guild, filed a lawsuit against Morton County PD for use of excessive force on the night of November 20th when they used water cannons in sub-zero conditions. This case will resume hearings today in the U.S. District Court of North Dakota with Judge Charles S. Miller Jr. presiding. In other news, on January 6th, Standing Rock Sioux Tribe filed a motion with the D.C. District Court asking the judge to throw out DAPL's lawsuit against the Army Corps of Engineers. The DOJ filed a similar motion. So this comes after DAPL sued the Corps in November, saying it had the easement needed to go under Lake Ahi.
So let's go back to December 5th. Some of you may have heard of a pipeline spill about 150 miles from the protest site. So that was the Belif-Forche pipeline. Excuse me if that wasn't pronounced correctly. But this pipeline spilled 176,000 gallons of crude oil into the Ashcool Creek, which is a tributary of the Missouri River. So the operator, which is called True Companies, and I know it's a strange name for a company, has had 36 spills since 2006. Now, keep in mind, Sunoco, the future operator of Dakota Access Pipeline, has spilled crude oil more than 200 times since 2010. So they've actually spilled more crude oil than any of their competitors. And so for the people of Standing Rock and the people all across the country, it's not a matter of if the pipeline will leak, but rather a matter of when it'll leak. And when it does leak, millions of lives are going to be affected. Not only the people of Standing Rock, but millions of people downstream are going to feel the impacts of that. Now let's talk a little bit about this confusion about this environmental assessment, environmental impact report. So Dakota Access LLC did do an environmental assessment in July of 2016, and their conclusion was that it's safe and that it won't be a problem. And honestly, that's not a surprise. You got to think about it. Dakota Access LLC is the company that's making the pipeline. Of course, they're going to say there's no problem with it. So the Army Corps of Engineers, when they denied the easement, They said they're going to be preparing an environmental impact statement. So the previous assessment was actually only limited to small sections of the pipeline. And so we're expecting the Army Corps of Engineers to publish a notice of intent to prepare an EIS in the Federal Register. And this is going to be followed by public comment. And this process usually takes about 6 to 12 months. So it could be pretty long, but we are kind of worried that they're going to end up narrowing their view to expedite the process for DAPL. In other news, let's talk about Donald Trump for a second here. He's on everyone's mind, and he's going to be taking office very soon. So some of his nominees, like let's talk about Rick Perry, for example. He's his pick for Energy Secretary, and he actually sat on the board of Energy Transfer Partners before he recently resigned at the end of last year. And the thing is, he still owns about $250,000 in stock in Energy Transfer Partners and Sunoco. But he says he's going to divest his interests within 90 days after his confirmation. This is the same guy who said that he wanted to eliminate the Department of Energy in 2011, and he calls climate change a contrived and phony mess. He does not believe it's human caused. This is what we're dealing with here, folks. I mean, this is the incoming administration. The ExxonMobil CEO, Rex Tillerson, named Secretary of State. I mean, this guy's also he isn't thinking about renewables at all. I mean, he's just stuck on fossil fuels. I mean, in 2016, he even told investors that, quote, the world is not going to have to, is going to have to continue using fossil fuels, whether they like it or not. So these are the people we have to start mobilizing against to make sure they don't just sell out all of our land to these oil companies and just, you know, poison our waters. We're going to have to stand up against these people if they do end up taking office. And just a side note, we found out that Congress actually can approve the final easement for the pipeline and deem it compliant excuse me, with environmental laws through either an appropriations rider or a standalone bill. So we'll have to wait and see if they're going to try to pull a fast one on us by doing this. Hang on tight. We'll keep you updated on that. Kelsey?
Yeah, so for a Frontlines update, on December 27th, 2 days after Christmas, there were actions at Turtle Island and Backwater Bridge in the afternoon into the early evening. And for the first time in several weeks, there were SWAT forces called into action, and there was backup for Morton County. Non-lethal rounds were fired at a group of about 80 to 100 water protectors. So this is the most action that we've seen on the front lines, you know, for a couple weeks. Morton County released a press statement that they arrested 5 water protectors because they were tampering with a Department of Transportation sign on Backwater Bridge that says no trespassing beyond this point. So with those arrests, that brings the total to 585 people have been arrested since early August. So we're closing in on the number on 600 people that are starting to go to court and be in the legal process. Moving on, the Army Corps of Engineers denied the easement needed by DAPL, as I'm sure you all know. The Missouri to go under Lake Oahe, the Missouri River Reservoir. On December 4th, the Energy Transfer Partners and Sunoco responded saying that they fully expect to complete the project, and they requested a motion a few days later for a court order granting them easement, but Judge Boasberg, the judge in this case, denied the motion. So ETP stated in court documents that they were committed to completing the project by the start of 2017, and if they didn't, shippers would be able to have the right to, quote, terminate their commitments. In an email correspondence with The Guardian, however, DAPL spokeswoman Vicky Granado stated that January 1st was not, in fact, a contractual date, but more of a target date. So as of right now, DAPL hasn't stated when their actual contractual date is for their shippers to be able to pull out of the project entirely. But the statements that DAPL have been making are a little contradictory of themselves, what they've said in court versus what they have said to media. But they have stated that each month of delay for the project cost them $4.5 million, and a failure to launch in 2017 would put them at a loss of $913 million. So rolling back outside of camp, we're going to talk about some actions that have been happening. So on January 2nd, at a Vikings game in Minneapolis at the U.S. Bank Stadium, 3 individuals were arrested for climbing to the rafters and unfurling a banner that said "Divest." I'm sure many of you saw it. It got over 1 million views on Facebook Live. And the reason they did this is because U.S. Bank has a line of credit with the DAPL project that totals to $1.75 million. On January 2nd, also at the Rose Parade in Pasadena, California, there was a delegation of water protectors that was organized by the Bernie Sanders Brigade. And in Times Square in New York, a 10-second ad reading "Water is Life" plays on rotation every 20 minutes, making a call to divest. And that was paid for the Indigenous Coalition at Standing Rock, which is comprised of Honor the Earth, Sacred Stone, the Indigenous Environmental Network, and the International Indigenous Youth Council.
So what are we doing right now? So Lakota People's Law Project has a petition, and we're actually part of a coalition for this petition. So we're part of a coalition. It's got a little over a dozen organizations in it, including Greenpeace and the Indigenous Environmental Network. And so we're calling for the banks to defund DAPL and asking people to pull out of these banks in support of the water protectors. So far we've got $43 million divested from the banks just by individual people pulling out. And if you haven't signed the petition yet, please do. It's on our website. We're going to post a link for you in the comments. Check it out. Please sign it and share it with your friends. We have about 120,000 now. Signatures.
130.
Help us get to 200,000. We can do this with you guys. This is a fight that's going to require us to all work together. And in this day and age of computers and social media, we can do that. So just do your part and share. Thank you so much. This is Artie.
Kelsey.
Signing off. Have a great day.